Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Destina. This is Spiritually Bougie Astrology. We're going to be taking a look at the astrological transits for July 24th through July 30th. How was everybody's week last week? Nothing happened, right? There was no fighting. There was no tension. Nobody lost their job. The third largest trucking company didn't file bankruptcy and cut off everybody's pensions. Amazon and UPS is not threatening to go on strike. No, no. Nothing happened last week, right? Absolutely nothing happened last week. We all know I'm full of shit right now. There's so much shit that happened last week. It's crazy. And everybody's kind of in a very different mentality right now. We have gone through a week where we started things feeling very, very confused, kind of clouded. Even if we didn't realize we were confused, it was just something wasn't revealed, something wasn't clear, something we weren't aware. If we weren't confused, we were just completely unaware because we weren't meant to know. It was being held behind. It was being talked about in secret with other people, and it wasn't meant to be privy to you until it was meant to be privy to you. And then, as the week progressed, as tensions built, you became privy to something. You realized something. Somebody became more clear in front of you. Their intentions were more clear. Their actions were far more readable than they had been because the veil around them, the shrouding around them, their mask, it fell. The more cocky they got, the more their ego popped out, the more they started showing their ass, the more Venus's energy grabbed them. The veil fell away. And when the sun hit that opposition of Pluto and it activated that square, the Grand Cross square that we had between the North Node, the South Node, Pluto, and the sun, that truly was a target activation. Some of us on Saturday morning when we woke up, we were waking up vibrating. And the more sensitive you are to the energies, the more you were vibrating. Because we knew we needed to face something, because we needed to overcome something, because we knew we needed to send the message, because we knew we needed to make the phone call. And if we didn't make the call, it was suddenly we felt this vibration deep inside of us like, oh my God, I needed to reach out. I need to talk to him. But you guys haven't spoken so long because so much of the chart is under pressure in indirect ways. Some of you spent part of the weekend reaching out to people that you haven't talked to in a long time. Or you were the one that got reached out to by that person you haven't spoke to in a long time. And when I was meditating on part of this chart and part of the energies, there was two songs that really came up whenever it came to like the interpersonal side of like relationships. And literally it was just two songs and it was two very different like energies behind them. One was Shut Up and Dance. You're holding back. Shut up and dance with me. Yes, that one. Then the other one was Vegas by Doja Cat. You ain't the man, you ain't the man. I understand. No, I get it. Some of us with the Venus retrograde, that spinning effect last week, the spinning, the spiraling, it was all mental. And we couldn't get someone, we couldn't get a situation, we couldn't get this moment, this energy off of our mind. We kept going back. I think I should reach out. When did y'all break up? 2 years ago. No. Don't do that. What? Don't do that. They have no clue. Like you're in this mindset. Like what is this? Part of that was because of that energy grab. Venus is spinning. Had all of us spinning in one way, shape, or form. It had all of us overthinking a certain topic, a certain conversation, past situations. You know how that goes. Sorry, guys. Now, once Venus turned retrograde, by the time we got to Saturday night into Sunday morning, and I'm recording Sunday morning, just to be clear, I wanted to actually be in the Venus retrograde energy before I recorded this because I know how I felt last week and I wanted to see if I was going to still feel that way today. And it's kind of worse. I shouldn't say worse. It's more. All last week, I kept looking at things that I felt petty, like super petty, wanting to call people out on their shit. But then again, at the same time, like the minute I saw that they were in that aggressive spinning, like, and I do mean aggressive, like lash out at people energy. I'm like, oh, I don't need to call you on your shit because sooner or later you're going to get dizzy and fall on your face. So I don't need to help. Now, Venus's energy, having us spinning, having us spiraling, we're overthinking situations, we're overthinking the past, we're overthinking the present, we're trying to get our mind focused because something has just come up and it has us reeling. Now, some of us, this was interpersonal relationships, and this did have to do with a specific person. Some of us, it was business stuff. It was work. And the spinning effect of Venus was the money. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? How am I going to move forward? How is this going to get better? I don't know. I'm so scared. I'm so everything. And there were tensions and there were frustrations, and we felt so much fear being triggered. And the reason so much fear has been triggered and will continue to be triggered is because Pluto. One continuous energy that we were in last week, that we will continue to be in this week. One, of course, is Venus and her spinning. Although Venus's spinning will end by the end of the week, and she will start to baby step off that 28-degree mark. And then Pluto. Pluto is going through a square with the nodes. Pluto is retrograde. The nodes always move in a retrograde pattern, basically. Sometimes they have a little ticker clock effect to them, but for the part of this conversation, we're going to say they're always retrograde. So while Pluto's moving backwards, so too are the nodes. So everything is doing this. That means there's a pressurized energy to face old fears, old traumas, old wounds, to work through them, to overcome them, to transform. Transform ourselves, transform the situation, transform the space, transform what we do as our calling, what we're doing for a living. There is this need to change, transform, and overcome old wounds and fear. Some of those wounds, some of that fear is very much tied to present situations. You've been at a company for 15 years and now all of a sudden, for the very first time in a very long time, how do I even make a resume? I have no clue how to start this. And it is the effects of last week, whether it was the Monday through Friday, like ending Friday, or the interpersonal things that would have popped up over the weekend. Whenever we get into Monday, we're still in the spinning, reeling effects, but we're in the next layer of it. We're in the next level. Whatever was unclear before, whatever hadn't been revealed before, it's been revealed now. And we're either tossing with the idea of communication, tossing with the idea of how to take the new steps towards finding a new job. We're trying to get an idea of like how we're going to unpack all of these boxes. I don't know, should that be the linen or that area right there? Like, we have this, we're doing a lot of internal processing as we get into Monday. Now, the great thing about Monday is it's not heavy transit-wise. However, what's interesting about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday too, but we're not on the Sunday part of this week, is the moon is going to go from Venus's sign into Pluto's sign. This tells me that the first half of the week is all about processing and getting through whatever these two areas of the chart represent. That's what we're going to be focusing on. That's what we're going to be working through over the first part of the week. So there will be some weight, tension, heaviness, sadness, hot girl empowerment, because some of us, if we're hearing the Vegas song, the Doja Cat song, like, this ain't working, Venus's energy is very empowered. So we're starting to take those little empowered steps versus the weighted steps. So put this on the screen. All right, we got this at Monday morning, July 24th at 7:10 a.m. The moon is in Libra. Again, like I said, the moon's not doing a whole lot. We're not heavy on transits. The main thing that I want to bring up about today is that yesterday, as in Sunday, the 23rd, Uranus's square to Mercury occurred. And there was either an unexpected arrival or there was an unexpected breakthrough in communication. There was some unexpected message that came through. And this message could either be the follow-up of the fear that was triggered the day before, or it is tied to the trigger, like flat out. It's just like, you got the message, you got the call, and you still haven't called back. You're still trying to process everything. And the thing about the moon in Libra, in the air sign all day on Monday, is that there's a lot of noise. For some ways there's music, in some ways there's conversation, in some ways there's other things going on. But the moon in Libra has us busy. We're either talking about everything that has gone through, we're trying to work through things, we're trying to process things, or we're internally processing them. We're overthinking the situation. We're going over it over and over and over and over and over again. Now, some of us, what we're going over and over and over again is heavy. And it has to do with that layoff. It has to do with the fact that Grandpa was just in the hospital. It has to do with these other things that we weren't necessarily anticipating. And other effects, we've been able to break free of someone. Now that the South Node is in Venus's sign, there is that breakaway energy. And I've said this to you guys before. We're in this energy where we release and we let go and we overcome and we find peace and we relieve ourselves. But whenever some people hear the cutoff energy, they immediately take it to the negative. The thing is if you've outgrown it, donate, cut it off, let it go. There is this processing internally and externally, so a lot of social elements to Monday, where we're talking things through. We're working through a situation. We're trying to put things in motion. We're trying to deal with what just came up last week. Now, some of us, we will still be in the spinning effect. But again, the spinning has new information, where before, if you thought, everything's fine. Oh, he's just in a mood. Everything's going to be great. She's just, she's stressed out from work. And then you went through those messages. And then you got that unexpected message from, I think we're dating the same guy. Baby, I'm married. What are you talking about? I'm like, no. I think you're dating my husband. That's what that is. Now we have that information. Now we have that. That thing that incited fear, that has incited rage, that has incited this new level of empowerment. And now we need to understand, what do I do with this information? How do I approach it? How do I deal with this? How do we face this? How do we overcome this? And it might take a few days. There's very important conversations that are about to be had this week. But again, it might take a few days because we need time to process. The best thing that anyone can do is, if you've just had something that shakes you to your emotional core, is take that step back and think about things and process it before you do anything else. So, again, when I concentrate on Monday, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of vibration, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of reacting, venting, beeping, noise. There's just a lot of noise. It's not a bad thing, but there is. Now, I'm going to add a layer to this. Remember July 24th. Remember the effects from Friday to Monday. Here's why. It is over the weekend. I didn't put this in last week's podcast because we had so much other stuff in last week's podcast, so I want to bring it up now. But it was the things that have occurred this weekend that are going to come back up again, not necessarily based off the Venus retrograde, but they're actually going to come up in the Mercury retrograde. Why do I say that? Mars is in Mercury's sign. Mars just did that opposition to Saturn. Mars is at Mercury's point of shadow. Now, I said this before, whenever Venus first entered Leo and that first Jupiter-Venus square, I'm like, that ties into the Venus retrograde. Mars was in a certain point of the sky. During that first Venus-Jupiter square, Mars was at Venus's point of shadow. When Venus turned retrograde, Mars was at Mercury's point of shadow. So, The elements of this Venus retrograde will amplify when we get to the Mercury retrograde next month. I'm planting that seed now, guys. I need you to know that now. It means whatever we start to deal with, paperwork-wise, logistics-wise, communication-wise, whatever we're doing, it's going to come back. Okay. Oh, now the one thing about Monday and the moon, there is one small transit, and that is the moon will make this opposition to Chiron. This happens between 3:30 and 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. The moon in Venus' sign, while Venus is spinning, making this opposition to Chiron, a now retrograde Chiron, because Chiron actually turned retrograde on Sunday. We need to reflect and we need to understand what wounds we have just created, what wounds we have created in the past, because we need to overcome them and we need to heal them. There is wounds still being created, even though Chiron is retrograde. And the reason we're having wounds still created with Chiron being retrograde is because now the North Node, the head of the dragon, the thing that wants to eat and devour everything, the thing that cut its own body off, it's now in Mars' sign. So there is going to be, hope and desire to fix something, to overcome something. And with this empowerment of Venus right now, it's going to be like, nah, you had your chance. You didn't do that. I'm so sorry I hurt you. That's okay. I'm over it. I'm over you. Okay. All right, we're going to get into Tuesday. So this is July 25th. I have it on the screen at 7:10 a.m. Central Standard Time for those that are listening to the audio-only version. The moon is still going to be in Libra, but the moon gets a little bit busier on Tuesday. I'm going to just kind of list the transits of how they're going to go, and I'll give you the times as to when they're going to go, and then we'll kind of go over the whole day. So, the moon is in Libra. It's going to go into Scorpio at 11:55 a.m. Central Standard Time. However, in the morning, there is going to be Mercury trine this moon. That actually happens in the overnight hours between midnight and 2 a.m. So, if we're having a hard time sleeping because we're overthinking things, this would be why. Not able to focus, not able to rest. We've got so much mental activity and ideas coming through. We're trying to work something out, but whatever we're trying to work through is going to be like with a long-term energy. The moon is going to sextile this retrograde Venus right before she conjoins the South Node and squares Pluto. Now this has weight to it. When the moon goes through Libra and goes through Scorpio, she will touch Pluto and Venus simultaneously. I can't say that same thing for Virgo. I can't say that same thing for Sagittarius. Starting this retrograde with the moon going through the two signs that their rulers are the most pressured, there's tellingness to this. We might find the motivation late at night with the Mercury sextile to the moon, like, all right, I'm going to call tomorrow. I'm going to start the job hunt tomorrow. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm making this decision because we need to overcome something, because we need to fix something, because we need to deal with something. But for a lot of us, this is going to have some emotional triggers to it. This will be the first conjunction of the moon to the South Node now that the nodes have changed signs. We will internally feel this energy. And if you're sitting down to type out your resume for the first time in 15 years, this can affect you emotionally. You can question your worth. You can question what you've done in the past. You can question everything that you've accomplished. You can question your education. You can question everything. And it can be very quick to push yourself into a negative spiral with the weight of the transits right here. The best thing I can say about Tuesday is find ways to keep yourself grounded. If you're an air moon Mercury, then it's music. If you're a water moon Mercury, then you need water. Like you need to be around water. You need to soak in the tub, go swimming. You need to do things that actually help you on an emotional level, and drink lots of water. Stay hydrated. It's summertime. Everybody needs to stay hydrated, but in general, water moons, you heard what I said. If it is Earth, Moon, and Mercury's, then you need to find something to be productive, because that is what grounds you. Whether that is through a spreadsheet, Virgos, I said what I said, or if we're actually going outside and doing some type of physical labor, doing some work in the garden, finding ways to literally ground ourselves, then do that. Fire, Moons, and Mercury's, y'all are going to struggle not to pop off. I know it just because I know you guys, but you need to do something where you can let your voice out. And if you can't let your voice out, then you need to go for a run. You need to go do that physical activity. You need to go dance. You need to do that physical thing that works through the emotions before doing any type of negative reaction. Trust me on that. Now, Venus is spinning. Venus is newly retrograde. The moon is in Venus's sign, and it makes that sextile to Venus. Could I have done something different? Did I make a mistake? Was there anything I could have done differently? Now, if you work for a company that just did a layoff, baby, you couldn't have done anything differently. Second guessing your life will not change anything. Hindsight is 20/20 for a reason. It's because now the perspective is much clearer than what you had when you were in the moment. Many of us, the reason that we're not clear in the moment is because we react emotionally versus logically. This is a day where we need to put more emphasis on logic, but I feel like a lot more people are going to fall into the emotion based off the way the rest of the day goes. When the moon hits this conjunction of the south node, it will square Pluto exact. The nodes are squaring Pluto exact right here. So we will feel this need to relieve something, release something, and let something go. If we've had something holding us back, that inhibition of just like, I can't move, I'm frozen, I'm stuck, I gotta get unstuck, I gotta do something, I gotta do something. We're trying to find the motivation. In some ways, we can find the motivation here. In other ways, it might make us freeze worse. I think everybody is going to feel this very first moon south node conjunction, and it's going to give us a perspective of certain energies tied to this Venus retrograde, but also some of the energies tied to the next year and a half. And again, we're in this moment where we need to overcome fear. But in some of us, it is this conjunction of the moon and the south node squaring Pluto that shows us the other parts of the fear, the other parts of the wound, and the other parts of the trauma. We see something or someone differently. There's an internal reflection to work towards something. And it might take a few days to get to that point, but we need to work towards something. And the moon making this conjunction to the south node is telling us that. Now, after the hot morning mess transit that is, it continues. So we're going to bump this by hour now. So let me move that. I get to right around noon. So I have it at 12:10 p.m. Central Standard Time. The sun is now in Scorpio and it's entering a square from the sun. It is the quarter moon, so we start to have a buildup in the energy. We're building up towards the full moon. I think we've all been feeling a buildup anyways because of the other things going on. So this is just more to the equation. But now the moon is in Pluto's sign. I do truly feel that whenever the moon makes that conjunction to the south node, it triggers something. Internal triggering, something that we need to process and something that we need to release. So again, do those things that ground you, because whatever we deal with once the moon goes into Scorpio, it is emotional. It is deep. It is the dark side. It is the things that we don't easily share with everybody. It is the feelings that we've had for a very long time. And we immediately feel some type of challenge from the sun in Leo, in its home, going, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Liar, liar, pants on fire. There's something wrong with you. What just happened? What happened this morning? How'd the interview go? I don't want to talk about it. There is this energy of regret, remorse, but also release. Now, before, with the moon going through Libra, we were dealing with the mental release, the over processing and everything along these lines. Once the moon goes into Scorpio, there's a lot more emotion to it. And some of us, we need to do emotional purging, emotional release to overcome that wound that's been holding us back for so long. Now, some of us, it's not just a wound, it's literally dealing with a real life effect because we're dealing with actual issues with our health. Then we need to process whatever we're dealing with to overcome the moment. Sometimes it's not always about the deep-seated soul level wounds. Sometimes it's literally about trying to get our body regulated, trying to get our life regulated, and realizing that what just occurred is now impacting you in a whole different way. It might take a few days for the anger to go down before the emotions come through. It's like stages of grief. Anger, resentment, fear. Okay. Now, once the moon enters Scorpio, the exact square to the sun is actually going to be later in the afternoons, between 4 and 6 p.m. So this is like the end of the day. You're coming home and finding somebody upset at the coffee table or at the kitchen table. I'm like, I thought you had an interview. Did the interview not go? No! Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's okay. Immediately afterwards, though, after we've had that a moment to like go through that emotional energy, go through that need to just kind of like growl a little bit, the moon is going to enter a trine to Saturn. Now, this is going to happen a little bit later in the evening, so this happens between 11:30 and 1:30 in the morning. So again, some of us, we work later hours. Some of us, we are insomniacs and we don't sleep a normal schedule. The moon making this trine to Saturn, as Saturn is retrograde, we're trying to get an understanding from past events, from past experiences. We're being offered information from a past situation that somebody else has experienced. Well, in my day, well, Grandpa, we can't always do it that way anymore. But that's kind of the situation. It's giving insight to a past experience so maybe somebody else doesn't have to learn every lesson the hard way. Saturn is explaining its wound. Saturn is explaining its experience, its emotions, how it feels. And this isn't an easy thing for Saturn to do. However, with the way that the pressure is on Pluto, that tells me, because Pluto's in Saturn sign, this tells me that there's going to be a lot of emotional healing, especially for the elder generation. They've been stuck in their ways for so long, but they're going to feel a lot of pressure to make a change in some way. Now, it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows. Not every bigot is going to suddenly have a better attitude about life, but it can very much lead to them explaining why they feel that way and what causes them to feel that way and why they're in that certain mindset. This might not have anything to do with the earlier part of the day. This can be something completely separate. For others, it can be exactly that. Like you talked to one person in the afternoon and they made you feel like crap because, the interview didn't go as well as you hoped. And even though they didn't say anything to make you feel like crap, like you just felt like crap. And then later in the evening, after you've had some more time to like deal with what you're feeling, we look at a different experience. We talk to somebody else and what they have gone through. This might not all play out at midnight. Some of us, it might be the next morning. Some of us, it might have been around 9 or 10 o'clock. But there is this moment of trying to have emotional understanding. This is how it went for me. This is what my experience was. This is how it was back in the day. This is the way it went. And the moon is taking that lesson. It's taking that understanding. It's getting that feedback because there is other things that need to be done. It's supportive, which is a good thing. All right, so we are on the 26th. I have it at midnight right now, but I'm going to keep bumping this forward. We're going to get to A little bit later into the actual day, I want to get it. Sure, that's a nice number. Okay. So, I have it on the screen at July 26th at 2:10 p.m. Central Standard Time. The moon is in Scorpio and it's making its opposition to Jupiter. This is actually the most exact between 12 and 2 p.m., so I'm at the later part of that. We have this energy of talking to a teacher, educating someone, or getting educated by someone, not necessarily like just talking about the experience, but like going to somebody that has more foresight, that has more connections, that can actually offer a little bit of hope, that can bring a different analogy to the table, or we're taking the comments and the feedback and the lesson from last night and we're looking for a different application. Maybe the actual experience that was given was like, well, you know, whenever I went and applied for jobs last, like, this is how I did it. This is where I went. This was the better way for me to go. It made more sense to me. Like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Some of us were going to be a little tense. Some of us we're still in that medical situation. We're talking to a doctor right here. We're trying to get perspective. We're trying to understand what's going on, or we're telling the doctor what has gone on. Like, it's been a rough few days. We couldn't get the blood pressure to stay under control. The fever would not break, or it kept coming back after I would break it. Like, things along these lines. We're giving this feedback energy, but also accepting certain information, accepting certain knowledge, learning something in the moment. Some of us were the ones giving the lesson. Okay, so you can do this to break a fever. You can do this. They're teething. I always suggest with teething, baby carrots. Or not baby carrots, but like raw carrots. Because the baby can hold on to it. But if it's cold from the fridge, you're getting lessons. You're getting some type of foresight. You're getting some type of advice, some type of information right here. We're getting really close to having a bigger conversation. So part of the insight can be like, how should I address, how should I do this? Or I have another interview tomorrow and I don't want to bomb it. So like, what can I do differently? What can I do to help me? Like, this is the type of insight that we're asking for, because we're going to have a very specific meeting or conversation very, very quickly. That is going to require a different energy and a different level up in a lot of different ways. After the moon's opposition to Jupiter, the moon's kind of chilling. Now, in the earlier parts of the day, we did have the sextile from Mars. I completely skipped that and I apologize. That was actually in the morning. So between 6 and 8 a.m. Central Time. I have the Mars right here in the sextile to the moon. And the thing is, Mars is the other ruler of Scorpio. So this can be very internal for a lot of people. It's like waking up and finding a certain motivation, or knowing that we have to get something done. For others, it can be the plan, an intention to make a plan, the intention to meet, the intention to do something. Mars is in Mercury sign, so it's like we could also be like, this can be the intention in the morning where we set like, okay, I'm gonna approach this next thing differently. I'm gonna talk to somebody and get an idea of how to deal with it. And that can result from that Mars Jupiter opposition later in the day of like, we wake up motivated to overcome. And then once Mars hits that opposition to Jupiter, like, we're getting the insight of how to overcome, how to work through the disruption, how to work through this recent situation. There is enlightenment with the moon's opposition to Jupiter. Okay. After that, the moon's not too busy. We're going to get into the 27th. And then got a lot of things going on the 27th. One, the moon's going to be in Scorpio, but then by evening, it's going to go into Sagittarius. Mercury and Venus are going to have a conjunction, and this is going to be exact around 10 o'clock in the morning. So what I want to do is, yeah, that's fine. So right now I have it on the screen, July 27th at 6:10 a.m. The moon is in Scorpio and it is making its opposition to Uranus. So here's Uranus right here in Taurus. Here's the moon in Scorpio. But right over here in Leo, what do we have? We have Mercury making a conjunction to a retrograde Venus. Now this is very telling for a couple of ways. One, when Venus turned retrograde, Mars was at Mercury's point of shadow. So there is a dialogue of something here with Mercury and Venus. And for some people, Mercury and Venus are going to result in either an exchange. I'm going on maternity leave, Venus. Here's your desk for the next 6 weeks. Here's this space for you to work in for the next few weeks. Here's this. You're going to cover this because I need to go back here. I need to go do something else. I need to be gone. So in some ways, there's a handoff in this information. But the other thing about Mercury and Venus is that there can be prideful, boastful confessions, announcements, professions. So like professing how we feel, professing our intent. There can be very big announcements. I would not be surprised if we don't hear about some like presidential announcements this day. Just FYI. But Venus is now retrograde. So at some way, the announcement can still be about a takeover or a handoff. So the announcement can be, Bob's gonna finally retire. Bobby, because I'm out of names right now, is taking over his spot. And that can be the announcement. It can still have a handoff energy to it. Mercury's conjunction to Venus can also mean a very poetic, driven, motivated, soulful, because the moon is in Scorpio, confession of feelings. There can be people that want to profess their feelings this day. I've loved you forever and I've just never felt like I could tell you, but now I feel like I can tell you. And with the moon's opposition to Uranus, there is going to be something unexpected that comes through. So this unexpectedness can very much be about somebody telling you how they feel, and then you have to make a choice as to whether you feel that way or not. With Venus being retrograde, if she just shook off a bad relationship, she's not going to jump into the wagon all over again. She needs time to heal. She needs time to work. She needs some hot girl summer energy. I'm not saying like soil oats necessarily, but we need to do some things independently. And Venus and Leo can be very independent and empowered. So in some ways, we can confess how we feel for somebody. And that can either be that shut up and dance energy of, yeah, let's make it work. Let's give it a shot. I'm going to remind everybody, though, with Venus retrogrades that this is temporary energy. So be mindful of that, because people can get attached in temporary energy. And then later on, they can get hurt. So I'm just being very, very clear about that. But there's something in this retrograde that needs to be discussed. There's something that needs to be brought to the surface, that needs to be voiced. This is what happened. This is why I left. Well, you should have stayed gone. This is how I feel. I care for you deeply. Oh my God, I love you too. It can go both ways. Now, the moon's opposition to Uranus happening so early in the morning is there can be that unexpected text message from somebody. And at this minute, like at 6:10 a.m., this is exact. The moon is at 22 degrees, 38 minutes. Uranus is at 22 degrees, 38 minutes. So it is exact at 6:10 in the morning. You could get that text message or something, or an email, to have a meeting, to have an appointment, to do something. You can get that text message from an ex that, hey, are you getting it at 6 o'clock in the morning? Maybe. Depends on your sleep schedule. Depends on their work schedule and their sleep schedule. But there is an unexpected element. Now, Uranus is in Venus's sign. There can be a shake off in this energy. Not everybody's going to get their way. I got to be perfectly clear about that. So, keep moving this by hour. Whenever we get to, I wrote it down, between 2 to 4 is the moon's trine to Neptune. Mercury conjunct Venus is the most exact around 10 o'clock in the morning. So they're a little bit separated by the time we get to the afternoon. And then we get to roughly this point right here. So I'm going to leave it right here. So I have 4:10 p.m. Central Standard Time on July 27th. The moon is still in Scorpio. At this moment, the moon is leaving a trine from Neptune, entering a sextile to Pluto, and entering or in a square to the Venus-Mercury conjunction. Not everybody's going to be happy that somebody is taking over for Bob. It should have been my position. It should have been my thing. That's what I wanted. That's what I was expecting. And there can be some jealousy. The thing about Venus retrograde in Leo, there's going to be some green-eyed monsters coming out. People that aren't getting their way, that are getting their egos hurt, they can be a little reactive. This can be one of those days. We announce the new thing, we profess our feelings, and then we either realize our fears were completely right in that energy with the moon sextile to Pluto, or it is in this confession of how we feel, of wanting to connect or reconnect or do whatever we're doing right here. This confession energy between Mercury and Venus with the moon in the mix. Either two people are getting back together and somebody else isn't happy about it, or somebody is professing how they're feeling and they're not getting the feedback they wanted. They're not getting the acceptance that they wanted. Venus is retrograde. Venus is going backwards. She's moving away from the moon. They're not all together going in the same direction. So there can be these poetic injustice moments. This is how I feel. Sorry for you. Good for you. Oh, that's so cute. Oh, that one always stings, right? That's so cute. Oh, you're so cute. Oh, that trine from Neptune and Neptune being retrograde, there is this idealized, romanticized energy. There's a lot of emotions and a lot of pride. And there's going to be people on the 27th, so on Thursday, that they're going to get their feelings hurt. One way or another, they're going to get their feelings hurt. And we just have to understand that we are still in temporary energy. And again, if somebody just broke up and then you said, confess your feelings, this is bad timing, babe. Right now, what Venus needs is support to be empowered, to feel empowered again, to overcome what has just occurred, to deal with certain things, to get some things set straight. Now, it is after this conjunction with Mercury and Venus that Venus is going to move. Literally in the next 36 hours, so between midday on the 27th and going into the 28th, Venus is going to get off of the 28-degree mark, and Mercury is going to go into Virgo. So we're going to go ahead and just bump this by day, and we're going to get into Friday, the 28th. The moon is in Sagittarius. It went into Sagittarius later in the evening, in the early mornings. So actually I need to do this by hour. I didn't think about that. Let's do this earlier. 5. There we go. So this happens between 3:30 and 6:30 in the morning. Is everything going to play out for everybody at this time? No, not necessarily. But I always give you guys the exact time, knowing that the human effect is it might play out the night before, or might play out, later in the day. But in the early parts of the morning, the sun in Leo is going to trine the moon. Simultaneously, the moon is squaring Saturn. Did you tell Mom? No, I am not telling Mom. I'm not telling her yet. She got to have her coffee first. It's early in the morning. If you've tried to talk to me before coffee, it does not work. So, I'm just being real now. So, there is this push to go to an authority figure. There's this push to go talk to an elder. There is this push to take on a certain responsibility, to go back to an old responsibility, to confirm an old responsibility. The sun is in a trine to the moon. They're in fire signs. The moon is in Jupiter's sign. And Saturn is in Jupiter's sign. So some of this energy here, whatever can be coming about, might not necessarily play out on this day. There could be like a confirmation of responsibility, a confirmation of something coming through, but the full arrival hasn't happened yet. It might be happening later in the day. That's why I was starting out later, but then I remembered that part. Oh. So, it is between 4 and 5 p.m. Mercury enters Virgo. This happens right after the moon leaves its trine. I'm sorry, not a trine. It's square from Mars. Mars squaring the moon it's informing of a disruption. It's informing of something. Like you come home, you're going to start making dinner, and then you get that text message from your significant other letting you know he's bringing home a dinner guest. Hey, just so you know, make an extra plate, make extra food. Like, I don't have extra things. Should have told me. Should have told me sooner than right now. Hey, we're going to do this. Hey, so-and-so's coming over tonight. Hey, I got to work late. I got to do something different. I'm not going to be there. More of you, though, there's an arrival coming. Whether that arrival happens on Friday or it's happening on Saturday, that would be the real world effect. That can very much play out. But there is a disruption in the communication, in our hopes, in our desires, in our thought process. The moon is going to be doing much better in Sagittarius than what it was doing in Libra and Scorpio. But there is a challenge or tension or frustration. It's like, hey, I'm going to be home late and I'm bringing home a guest. What? Mercury is the guest. So again, right around 5 o'clock, here is Mercury, newly in Virgo. The moon is leaving its square from Mars. Mercury is in its exaltation. It's in its home sign. It's in Virgo. What does Virgo represent? Tangible communications, written communication. We need to uncover something. We need to go through something. If the day before, if you learn that Susie is leaving for maternity leave right then, and now you're taking over this position, this is you going through all of this new workload. Like, okay, how do I do this? How do I log onto the computer? How do I go here? Where do I do with this? There's something very tangible that is being focused on, that is being worked on, that is being worked through, and it starts once Mercury goes into Virgo. We need to have an understanding. We need to work through things. The reason so-and-so is coming over for dinner is because they're going to be working all evening at the island, and you had no idea that was coming. Maybe it's your kids. It's bringing some, I got to bring home a study buddy. We have a project. When's the project due? Tuesday. How long have you known about that project? I know it's summertime. Just give me a minute. How long have you known that you have this project to do? 2 months, and we decided to do it last minute. Some of you are just coming home and finding a house full of kids. That was the disruption. That was the arrival. Now, Venus moving backwards, finally, getting off that 28-degree mark, the spinning effect by the time we get to Friday, we're pretty well over it. Whatever happens in that Mercury-Venus conjunction, it allows for us to step off of what we're spinning on what we're overthinking, on what we're trying to process, on what we're trying to deal with. And we're getting a better idea by the time we get to the end of the week as to what occurred the week before. It takes a few days to get it under wraps and get a good handle on it. And it takes a few days for some people to communicate and to put something back in perspective and to give certain knowledge and certain ideas. Venus is going to start to move, which means the energy for us is going to pick up a lot more as we get into next weekend. Now, I'm going to remind everybody what I said as I go to the 29th. The arrival might happen Friday evening. It might happen on Saturday morning. So what you might get is that phone call, Mom, I gotta work extra. Can you take little Johnny? I can't tonight. Well, no, I gotta work tomorrow. Can you take him tomorrow? Can you take him for the weekend? Can you do this? There's this extra unexpected arrival energy whenever it comes to Friday and Saturday. Unexpected communication, an unexpected breakthrough, an unexpected situation, an unexpected road trip. Mercury's in Virgo, but whatever we're road tripping on, there's a purpose to it. We need to get more information. We need to go hunt for something. We need to go, shop for flea market stuff. That's not necessarily this exact transit, but there's this idea that we need to do something. There's an act, but it has a purpose now that Mercury is in Virgo. But also now that Mercury is in Virgo, this is where Mercury is going to be for the next 2 months, guys. The next 2 months. This will be our third Earth-ruled Mercury retrograde, and this one's going to have a lot of information tied to it. Okay. As we progress through the day on Saturday the 29th, the moon is going to hit this area right here. I'm going to get to this 27-degree mark. Okay. So this is later in the evening. For the most part, the moon's not doing a whole lot. It's not a heavy transit day. Like I said, we have that arrival energy of that new purpose, that new person, the unexpected guest. That has already occurred. By the time we get to the evening time, July 29th, I have it at 6:10 p.m. Central Standard Time. The moon is in Sagittarius. It is going to trine Venus and square Neptune. Very, very similar to what happened the day before with Saturn. That was happening earlier in the morning. This is happening later in the evening. The moon is in Sagittarius. The moon's having a lot of fun. This square to Neptune. This can be we want to have fun doing something we haven't done in a long time. Revisiting somewhere from the past. We're going and doing old things. We're revisiting things that allow for our inner child to come out. We're hot girl summer. We're single again, and we're going out to the clubs, and we're doing some type of thing. We're releasing the emotion. Venus is in a fire sign. The moon is in a fire sign. This release has a lot of activity to it. But with Neptune's energy, there's also a sense of nostalgia, a sense of mystery, a sense of maybe some confusion, breaking through a confusion because the moon is heading towards Neptune and Neptune is retrograde. So be like, we haven't hung out in so long. It's been a long time. Yeah, I know. Whose fault is that? Oh, I don't know. It's like, you quit talking. You got a boyfriend, you quit talking to everybody. You just shut everybody down. We all have that friend like that the minute they get into a relationship, nobody else exists. It's telling that person, you forgot about everybody. You did this. It's explaining something from the past, but not necessarily in a negative sense. It's trying to work through it. It's trying to overcome it because we are very empowered and we're feeling prideful and we're feeling hopeful and boastful. We're trying to move and shake the funk. The funk from the previous weekend is not going to be the funk from this weekend. We need movement. Very necessary movement. We can also run into somebody from the past. We're at the club, we're having a good time. You turn, look around the corner, and oh my God, I haven't seen you in so long. Your old friend, that old boyfriend, sometimes it's not always fun. That old girlfriend, still being crazy. Like, we run into somebody, we revisit somebody. We talk about how the past affected us and how we're going to do something differently now with Venus being retrograde. There's very much a work through, breakthrough, fun, excitement to this energy. Have your hot girl summer moment. It's not a bad day to do it. Not a bad day to do it. We're going to keep going. We're going to get into the 30th. We're going to get into Sunday. The moon is going to leave Sagittarius and enter Capricorn. You notice that actually happened real late in the evening. So here is the moon. It is 11:10 p.m. on the 29th. The moon is now in Capricorn. And it's not that it's weighted. It's not that it's heavy. It's just we start to feel a lot more grounded. We start to feel a lot more logical. We start to feel a lot more responsible. In the early hours, so I have this on July 30th, Sunday, it's at 1:10 in the morning. Here is the moon in Capricorn in a trine from Mercury. Sometimes when you meet up with old people at the club, you're like, hey, we're going to go get tacos. We're going to go to the taco truck. And while everybody's at the taco truck, we're like, so how's everything been going? It's like, oh my God, I have my own company now. I do this now. This is what's going on. It's been so great. And there is this very structured reconnection, a structured moment. And the reason I'm saying structured the way that I am is because, one, this is earth sign energy, but two, we're building up towards another trine. It does not happen on Sunday. It doesn't happen over the weekend. It's actually going to happen when we get in the first part of next week. And it's this trine between Jupiter and Mars. We can plant the seeds of some type of responsibility, of some type of communication, of some type of adjustment or change that we're going to make. Hard change. And I'm not saying hard in the sense of like it's going to be hard to do, but I mean like tangible. We're moving. We're doing this next. We're going here next. I just started at a new company. I own my own company. What are you going to be doing? Oh, we work with that place. And we start to feel a tangible connection coming through. We're learning something. We're getting some type of insight that's going to feed into a grounded, tangible part of next week. There's just a bit of a buildup right here of talking about new responsibility, talking about some authority, talking about certain changes, talking about where we're going, and kind of connecting some dots, even though we don't necessarily know we're connecting dots at that moment. Now, again, this energy is at 1 o'clock in the morning. Not everybody's having midnight tacos. For some of us, this is going to play out the next day. For some of us, we're not out having midnight tacos and doing Hot Girl Summer in the club. We are at home and we are trying to put a focus into something. Putting together a plan of how something is going to go this next week or how something is going to go the next day. And the thing is this is 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, so we can literally be doing a project the next morning. So let's keep this going. Of course, the moon is still very much in Capricorn, and the moon is going to enter this sextile to Saturn. Mercury, newly in Virgo, is meeting this opposition to Saturn. It is starting it. It is just starting the activation. This is going to go exact in a few more days. The Jupiter-Mars trine is going to go exact here in the next few days. So there is something in this energy that is mounting to something. It's building to something. If we talked at Taco Truck at midnight last night, the moon's sextile to Saturn right here can be like, did you really want to have lunch this next week? Yeah, I do. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that on Tuesday. Let's do that on Wednesday. Text message. But there's definitely something very, very tangible that starts to build up, that has a purpose, that, again, grounds us. There's a grounding energy here. If we're going to a place that's going to make us take on old responsibilities, then this is really getting a good idea as to what those responsibilities are going to look like. Or it's putting all of our focus in what that responsibility is going to look like. In some areas, this can be certain communications about authority figures and elders. Yeah, I got court on Tuesday. Are you ready? Not really. You should probably get ready. You should probably make a better plan. You should probably know what you're going to say. You should probably talk to your attorney if you have one. But there's definitely an energy of a buildup. And we are building up to a full moon. And that's going to happen exact on August 1st. So we can feel this necessary, grounded adjustment building up towards something very, I'm going to say hopeful, helpful, responsible, necessary. There's a good energy here. And there are good things coming. But there's also still certain releases that are very much in the air. I don't necessarily feel like there's a release to Sunday. I feel like parts of the earlier parts of the week, we worked through certain parts of those releases. And now we're getting groundwork towards the next thing, the next plan, the next action. The action doesn't take place this week, that's for sure. It's more likely to take place afterwards. It's not a heavy week. It's not a bad week. It's the next level. It's the next layer. It's getting over what we've been overthinking and what we've been reeling over. It's finally making the plunge and having certain conversations. It's reaching out, or it's processing what has just been done. Because if you've just been laid off from a job, you're not reaching back out to anybody. You could be making a plan with other people that you've done business with in the past, especially if you're in the type of business where you can do that, where you can change one company and go to another, but still have all the same contacts. Real estate lenders, you guys, this is really good for you guys, because if you go from one bank to another, you don't necessarily lose all of your networking contacts. They just kind of follow you. I dealt with that a couple times. We need to get a different gear about us. If we have been reeling and all in our emotions for a very long time, Venus's retrograde is going to empower us. If we just had a breakup, the spinning energy of Venus makes perfect sense, because there's so much misunderstanding and there's been so much confusion, and then there's so much heartbreak. How did we get to this point? In some ways, the energy that was tied to that start of the Venus retrograde, the days leading up to the start of the Venus retrograde, had us so very, very confused. But now after it starts, we start to get new information, and we get new insight, and we get new energy and new downloads and new understandings, both spiritually and internally, as well as the external and physical ways. There is an exchange to the energy, and we get into the next layer, and how we take things a little bit further, and how we build something towards another direction. And we get the very first little steps of what that new direction is going to look like this week. For some of us, it has been reconnection. And I, again, warn, if the reconnection is on a full-on, brand new relationship, this is whirlwind energy. It can be very karmic. However, for some people, it's taking an existing relationship to the next level. And I like that a lot better. And some of you, what is happening this week is announcing that next level. That Mercury-Venus conjunction could have been a proposal. And then everything afterwards has been showing the ring off. Venus turning retrograde could have been the proposal. And again, the days afterwards is like showing the ring off and talking about how we feel and getting everything processed. For a lot more people, though, there has been a purging. There has been a release. There has been a letting go. Masks have fallen. We can only wear a mask for so long, and then something over time starts to break. And it really comes down to just how deep-seated the things have been that have been hidden. For some people, there have been a lot of secrets that have come to the surface, secrets that no one ever thought would become exposed that have. Affairs for years, scandals, fraud and defrauding, lies and manipulation patterns. Some of us got a glimpse of a person that has only been in our lives for a few months or a few years. And even that has still felt like a betrayal. And now we're in the moment of processing it and determining, are we getting swept into the emotion? I mean, am I being irrational and illogical? Am I wrong? And parts of this week is going to be that overthinking and overprocessing, because we need to get an understanding. We need to understand something or someone. Some of you just made an act. You've just sent the message, you've made the call, you left the voicemail, you sent the DM, whatever it was, and you haven't seen the turnaround yet. But you will see the first glimpse of that turnaround this week. So just understand that for some of us, we're all in temporary energy, but the thing is, some of us can make long-term decisions or deal with long-term effects based off the temporary energy. Just because it's temporary doesn't mean that that wasn't meant to happen. It's just sometimes it's in the retrogrades that we really get that burst of energy to change something. And whatever is affecting this retrograde, I will continue to remind everybody, is directly going to affect the upcoming eclipse season. So, hit me up with questions, hit me up with concerns. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I am still taking appointments. This last week was really crazy and I didn't take any new ones. So if you guys are still wanting a reading, or you've thought about a reading and you didn't necessarily know if this was the right time, I do have openings this next week. I am going to go to more of a one-on-one standpoint. So that's going to be the better way for a lot of people. I'll be setting an individual time with everybody as to like what you're wanting, and we'll probably do just one-on-one Zoom. That way you guys can ask your questions and tell me everything that's going on, and we can kind of go over what energies are playing out and then how they're looking to play out in the near future. So again, I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support, and I will see you guys soon. Subscribe.